Ryland had previously missed a short field goal and an extra point in this game, but true as the driven snow in a mile-high matchup. This thing was a snoozer to start and then caught fire in the second half. 23-23, Ryland playing hero alongside Emery Hunt. I'm your host, Joe Musso. Where to begin? I mean, this at times felt like we were setting football back decades, and then it was an offensive onslaught, issues in the third phase, a kicker plays hero in the end. You walk away from this one with what sort of feeling about either one of these teams?
That teams tend to play up to the competition or down to the competition. We saw a team in Denver that had a lot on the line. Win the game, you strengthen, help your cause in terms of the playoffs is concerned. If you're the New England Patriots, if you win this game, you kind of set your season because you could knock a team like Denver out of the playoff picture. So you saw a team on either side come into the ball game with a lot to play for, some reason to show pride, and we saw this game go down to the wire.
There is no bigger difference in the NFL right now than 7 or 8 or 8 and 7, and that was the question being asked of this Broncos team. Yes, it was tight, and they had chances. Had the ball with 2 minutes left, Russ with a full battery of timeouts. They can't get anything going. But there was a lot of bad football by the Denver Broncos in the first 45 or so minutes of this game. This lack of execution at this point in the season, I mean, were you taken back at all? It felt like it was a Denver team that had previously turned a corner, but this looked like the team that was 1-5 through 6 weeks.
Yeah, Bill Parcells said it best. You are what your record says you are. So when we watch this ball game and we see all the miscues, the fumbles, ineffective play early on, hey, this is why this team is 7-7, because of stuff like this and things of this nature. So for me, it's like you're asking a team to play above their circumstance, and sometimes the tape just says what you are, and we've seen the Broncos over the course of 15 games show us that they are a 7-8 ball club.
On the other side, it was a Patriots team that for some time was sniffing that first overall pick, you know.
They're in the neighborhood.
They're still living in that neighborhood, but another win here and playing spoiler. They've beaten the Bills, Steelers, Broncos since week 7. These are teams battling for their playoff lives right now. You talked about setting the course, and we don't have to go too big picture here, but this is one of those that begs the question of what does this franchise look like beyond these next 2 weeks? I mean, head coach is a question. Quarterback is a question. A lot of position pieces come into question. The New England Patriots, what do they take from this victory?
That their defense is still able to win them ball games. I feel like their defense was the reason why they were able to win this one tonight. I know their offense caught fire, but their defense forced turnovers. Their defense got Denver off the field, gave that offense added possessions with the ball. So if we look at those games that they won against the Bills, the Steelers, and all those teams, it's been the defense. So if you're in New England going into the offseason, if we can improve offensively, we'll be right back in the playoff mix as one of these top 7 teams in the AFC. But defensively, they are already there. They just need their offense to get up to speed.
It was something to behold because, as I sit here, sort of feels like a microcosm of the Denver season. You start slow, you put yourself in a bit of a hole, you figure it out, oh, we're going to be fine, and then right at the end, when you think and you start to believe, it gets snatched from right out from under you. Mathematically still alive, but the hill, as we say, gets steeper here with the loss for Denver. Bailey Zappi orchestrates a game-winning drive there. It looked like Bill Belichick for a moment believed more in a coin flip than he did in his quarterback with 2 runs to start that drive, but connects on a deep one up the left sideline that sets up the field goal. Zappi's playing for something right now as well, too. Might not be the job there, might not be the starting job elsewhere, but we've seen what a backup quarterback means in this league right now. What did Bailey Zappi do for himself over these last, let's say, 90 seconds of this ball game?
Show that he's able to overcome adversity within the ball game. Coach called on you to make 2 passes in this game. The one deep down the sideline to Devontae Parker, you made that, and the one on 3rd down to set yourself up in a situation where you can kick the game-winning field goal. He did that as well. So when your number is called, make the play. Or as Bill Belichick likes to say, do your job, and he did his job tonight. Help get the Patriots to win.
And got the job done here the Patriot way. It's lost at times, but a win in this one because of that resiliency. Emery, thank you. Emery Hunt going to be with us all day long. I will not be wearing that hat. Game day scoreboard. Emery might be wearing it. We got highlights. We got reaction. We got a few big ones. Vegas, KC, as the Chiefs try and figure some stuff out. Philly trying to get right, and then, oh, good on good. One in the AFC, one in the NFC. We will see you at the conclusion of Baltimore, San Francisco for full highlights and reaction from one of the biggest games of the entire season. All right, let's spin this conversation forward. Again, CBS NFL analyst Emery Hunt here, and the purveyor of playoffs, John Breach, joining us as well to break down some of what we saw and all of what it means. Let's take a look at that NFC playoff picture first here, gentlemen, as we do have a Y next to the Lions' name. It is the Y that has dangled in front of this team for north of 2 decades. They now have the hats and the T-shirts and the title of division champion. Big one coming up for Eagles as they try and get right on Christmas Day. Cowboys with the loss to Miami, that's a big one as well. Rams and Seahawks standing pat at 8-7 with the going rate behind them 7-8, so no tiebreak needed between your 7 seed and the 8 seed. As we take this all in, John, if you're trying to make sense of what you expect to see 2 weeks from now, like what was the biggest result here on Sunday that informed that?
Well, I think the biggest question for me in the NFC was who was going to get that 7th seed. I felt pretty comfortable with the way the Rams were playing, that they would end up with the 6th seed. You had the Vikings fighting for that 7th seed. You had the second-place team in the NFC South fighting for that 7th seed. You had maybe the Green Bay Packers. But a team I think is going to get it out is the Seattle Seahawks with their huge comeback win in Tennessee. It's amazing what they've done just over the past week with that last-second win on Monday night against the Eagles, following it up with another TD pass in the final minute to beat the Titans. And now they've put themselves in a spot where they win their final 2 games, and they're in the playoff. You beat the Steelers at home in Week 17. You beat the Cardinals in Week 18. You punch your ticket to the postseason. So I think the Seahawks are probably the NFC team that has to be feeling the best about itself right now.
Yeah, I like the way this top 7 sits right now in the NFC. I think this is pretty much locked in.
You're not seeing any major change?
I'm not seeing any major change. Based off what we saw today, I feel like this is where we're going to land come postseason. John laid it out perfectly about Seattle's trek to the playoffs. You like that the Rams, we talked about this last time, the Rams are doing a great job. They're locked in my opinion. But this top 7, to me, is going to represent the NFC in the playoffs this year. Everyone else that's in the hunt, nice try. Parting gifts backstage. It won't happen for you this year.
Not cut and dry just yet by any means, but the chips are beginning to fall into place here. A big chip also I'd like to point to here is the Buccaneers and what they were able to do on Sunday, Emery. At 8-7, we've been sitting here all season saying someone's got to win it. Someone's got to win it. Who wants to win it? That has emerged as a team that not only is likely to claim that division, but one that I'm not sure you want to go there to play if you are in that 5 seed. Where have you seen the changes from the Buccaneers lately?
Quarterback play has been excellent. So they're getting great play from Baker Mayfield. They're also getting excellent play on defense. So when you're combining an offense that's able to drive the length of the field, put the ball in the end zone, and a defense that's able to close out games, it's the perfect marriage for a team that could be a problem for someone in the playoffs. Their run game is okay, but I do feel like the passing game is the reason why we've seen them get to where we are now.
All right, let's take a look at some numbers coming out of this one, as we do think that it is going to be as stands through the 7 seeds. But if you're looking at some of those there and beyond, the Buccaneers in the pole position right now to take that division, 88% chance, almost an 89% chance to make the playoffs. Seahawks and Rams, the next best. And there is your pesky bunch that needed results here. The Packers surviving throughout this week, but a couple of losses that are going to cost them when it's all said and done. The Vikings suffering that biggest loss here on Sunday. All right, time to peruse what it may look like in the AFC as well, and I'd beg to say it's a little bit less cut and dry, if you will, because we got so many teams stacked up right there at 8-7. We almost had another one. If the Broncos could have pulled that one off, that would have been another one into the pool of 8-7. That is currently Bengals, Steelers, Texans, Colts, with tiebreakers to be situated throughout. The Bills coming up with not only a win this week, but then some help elsewhere. The Jags, a big loss, but still your 4 seed at 8-7 despite their current slide.
This whole playoff picture is nuts in the AFC. I mean, the Cleveland Browns are the 5 seed with Joe Flacco. They could still get the 1 seed. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's at least plausible. We saw Jacksonville. They got smoked in Tampa Bay, but it didn't hurt them at all because we saw the Colts and the Texans both lose. And Jacksonville's percentage to make the playoffs, or to win the division, didn't really fall because they swept the Colts this season. So if they end up in a tiebreaker there, you win it. If they beat the Titans in Week 18, they're going to end up with a better division record than the Texans. So they win that tiebreaker with Houston. So they're really good in the tie-breaking department. Jacksonville doing okay despite being in a rut for the whole month of December. I think the bigger surprise here is with the Dolphins win, they're a very realistic shot at the #1 seed. They play Baltimore in week 17. That is wide open. The Ravens will be coming off a short week playing the Dolphins. That is fascinating. And then you look at the bottom down there, who's going to get that 7th seed. I feel pretty comfortable with the Bills at 6. But look, the Texans, the Colts, that is your 7th team. That is your 8th team right now. They play each other in week 18. And it feels like the winner of that game will end up getting that spot. And the big reason I think that is because the Steelers lost to both the Texans and the Colts. So even if the Steelers get to 9-8 or 10-7, if they end up in a head-to-head tie with the Colts or Texans, they're losing it because they lost those games. So I think the Colts or Texans, the winner of that week 18 match, ends up getting that 7th seed.
Yeah, and when you think about this whole AFC picture and you look at those teams in the AFC South, where you are today is a direct result of what you've done. So you can't get frustrated with anyone else but yourself based off how you handled the situation when Jacksonville has lost that game before you played your game. You go out and lose a couple of weeks ago, you could have made up ground against Jacksonville. Today, the Jags lose, you forget to make up ground because you also lost as well, and you may have found yourself losing out of the playoff picture. So you can't get mad at anyone else but yourself, and that's what's going on right now in the AFC South.
What if is not a fun game to play, so maybe let's play it by the numbers. John, Emery, we appreciate you as always as we take a look at the percentage chance for all of these teams hanging right there in the mix. Browns mathematically essentially in. Chiefs mathematically essentially in. The Bills, massive weekend, and let's broaden here. Massive few weeks for the Buffalo Bills, whose back has been against the wall, but they have kept on swinging. The Jags, despite this slide, still better than almost 3/4 chance to make it into the playoffs, and then the all-interesting Week 18 matchup. Colts-Texans. We'll see if Houston can get their star rookie quarterback back and make a difference coming home. Straight ahead, highlights and press conference reaction from Denver. Mistakes, miscues, and a Merry Christmas. All coming next on CBS Sports HQ. Joe Musso in studio alongside Emery Hunt as we explore some of what that Ryland kick meant and what all of these results on Sunday meant. Let's take a look at the current draft order. Patriots sitting at 4th overall instead of 3rd overall, where they would have been with a loss because the tiebreaker in terms of negativity still belonged to the Cardinals. So either way, regardless of the outcome between the Pats and the Broncos, it was going to be 1 Bears via Carolina and 2 Cardinals. Emery, if you're sitting there at #1 with the Bears, let's operate under the assumption that they're moving forward with Justin Fields as the quarterback. You probably want to get Marvin Harrison Jr. in the building, but that's going to be harder now because of some of what we saw on Sunday.
Right, because you look at the Cardinals will be your biggest threat to Marvin Harrison Jr. right there at #2. So either if you're Chicago, you take the guy you want at #1, or because I know a lot of Patriots fans are thinking, oh, wow, we played ourselves out of maybe Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jayden Daniels. The other question is, what does Washington do? Do they believe in Sam Howell to roll with him another year? If so, to me, Washington and New England are still sitting pretty in terms of quarterback play and quarterback prospects. But the Cardinals right now is the biggest detriment to the Bears trading out of that 1st-round pick. Otherwise, you have to go ahead on and just take Marvin Harrison Jr. and the quarterbacks. If someone wants them and you find another receiver that's equal or better, in your opinion, to Marvin Harrison Jr., or if you want Malik Neighbors and you feel confident in him, then you can move down and trade up, or let someone trade up to get one of those quarterbacks. But I feel like this is still setting up perfectly for those that may want one of those 3 quarterbacks that everyone is talking about in the 1st round.
Let's go further down that Bear road, because if you're Ryan Poles and you're sitting there and you're weighing, Marvin Harrison Jr. versus all that might come from that 1st overall pick being swapped back to, let's say, #4 to the Patriots. We saw what the 1st overall pick was worth in this most recent draft for those very same Chicago Bears. It was a pick swap with the Carolina Panthers. It was the 1st that's got them in this position. It was a 2nd, and with some other ancillary picks as well. Like the value of #1 versus the value of Marvin Harrison Jr. How do you weigh those two things?
Well, that's a great question, because this is where your scouts come into play, because now you're asking me, okay, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and let's say Keon Coleman and Romeo Odunze from Washington. What's the difference between those guys, right? That's where Chicago is going to have to really scout, dig into the tape, and decide, because if there's not that much of a drop-off between 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you feel confident in moving out of that #1 pick. If you feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the same caliber as a Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson or someone of that nature, then you're kind of stuck in saying, okay, I'm going to just take the guy at number 1. But if it's close, then you feel comfortable in moving out of that pick.
You know, we're getting close to PR season. That's when we start changing our opinions of these players after they've taken their last collegiate snaps. Do you think this is one of those off seasons where there could be a Drake May surge at some point? Or is this hook, line, and sinker, QB1, Caleb Williams? Or do you think that scouts across the nation might have differing opinions when it does come to rubber meet road time?
I think you got to throw in Jaden Daniels as well. Because he's the Heisman Trophy winner and he's what people saw last, right? So there's going to be that quarterback surge. There's going to be 3 quarterbacks I feel like being talked about as top 5 picks. So with that being a backdrop, now you look at, okay, if someone wants one of these 3, how far and how much are they going to have to move up? If you're Chicago, you're saying like, okay, well, do we want to double down on wide receiver? Do we want to go wide receiver and maybe offensive lineman? Do we want to go wide receiver and then trade the 2nd pick for a current player in the NFL, a known asset? They have options, and all of these teams have options, which is why I'm excited about this top 10 and how it's going to shake out in April.
And despite a win here on Sunday, the Bears still a top 10 pick of their own as well. Emory Hunt, it's going to be fun to break it all down before April. All right, one more look at that box score from Denver. Pure heartbreak on the holiday for the Broncos. 7-8 instead of 8-7, and a dwindling playoff hope. Let's get you back out to the stadium. The head coach sounding off after the loss.